So,
very nice. So he's got his lovely HP.
Yeah, I think so. So I think he was he was at Build. I saw him. So he can talk about the developer stuff. So we can talk. We'll do Windows 10 first and the keynote, and then we'll talk to Scott about the developer stuff and the iOS and Android stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Right, let's send this link out.
We're going to call this our weekly Skype call much longer, won't we?
Yeah, we can talk about that as well.
Maybe they should call it MSN Messenger.
That bring back memories.
Yeah. Was it Windows Live Meet? Wasn't it? Maybe they could call it One Meeting.
Yeah, it's got to be one something, hasn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're live. Jason, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, good, thanks. But no Gary tonight.
No, absolutely not. He's abandoned us. I think he was probably overwhelmed with the influx of news from last week.
Yeah, so he's probably gone to recompile all these iOS apps now for Windows.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think. I wonder if it was coincidence that Crossy Road came out just a couple of days after when it came out. I wondered if that was an iOS port.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think we're going to have a busy.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, we're going to have a busy show today because we're going to talk about the keynote, Build keynote last week, MS Ignite this week as well. So lots going on there. Plus, later on in the show, Scott Lovegrove is going to be joining us to talk about the developer story, seeing as Gary's not here, and Scott was at Build, so we can talk about that. So the idea of porting these applications across. But at first, I thought we'd start with there's quite a few things: the keynotes, HoloLens, and Windows 10. And I think you finally made the plunge. You've got Windows 10, so let's talk about the new build of Windows 10. So during the keynote, they announced, I think it was just shortly after the keynote, wasn't it? The build, what we on 10074 was released. So this is the first Windows 10 build you've tried sort of on a real machine that you do work on.
Yes, yeah. Although I think I should stop there, Ian. Should we not talk about Windows Azure for the first hour?
Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was. I mean, we'll make it. I mean, that was the thing. I was very excited because keynote's coming up, and I thought, well, I was doing Excel training, and I'm teaching Excel, and I thought the course was due just to finish about 4:00. I thought that's perfect timing. I'll go back up to my desk, put the stream on in the background, and catch up with my email. Watch all the Windows news and then go home. That seemed to make perfect sense. But an hour in, I was still looking at Azure cloud services and data pools and rivers of data and bridges and Azure services. And yeah, it took a long while for them to get. I mean, I can understand why, but it took a long while to get to the good stuff, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, I was mainly joking. I didn't want to dwell on it too much because I know it's not our audience. But yeah, I do think it's very, very significant. I think it is a real statement in terms of how Azure, I mean, I think they talked about it being a 20 billion kind of service within about a few years' time. So I think it was very significant. I mean, we always talk about how, we kind of are where we are because each team, when they try to develop something new, were told, no, you can't take cache away from Windows or from Office. They're our cache cows. You can't put Office on iPad. You can't put Office on somewhere else because we want people to buy Windows to run Office. And I mean, that's the first keynote that I've watched at Microsoft where Windows didn't come first. And I know it was more of a developer conference rather than a consumer conference, but I think it was very significant, the fact that Windows 10 is going to be a free upgrade. Office is now a subscription model, and even being given away on some devices. So yeah, I did think it was very, very significant, but disappointing for probably a lot of the people that went there just to get the Windows news.
Yeah, there was a lot to sit through beforehand. But like you said, it's all relevant stuff, and you've got to give it to Microsoft for putting that. significant marker down to say how significant Azure and cloud services are. And I suppose the other element to it is they know people are waiting on the Windows stuff, and perhaps if they put the Windows stuff first, people would have watched the Windows stuff and then tuned out. But I don't think they were really aiming at those people anyway, were they? It was a developer story.
Yes, yeah, definitely. But yeah, so to come back to your original point, so yes, 10074 was released that day, and I kind of had it upgraded my machines. Luckily, I think that morning, the Wednesday morning of the keynote, somebody posted a fix to my family safety issues, which I'm pleased to say worked. So some obscure one about deleting, I think it was Apex cached packages or something.
That fixed a lot of things. That fixed. Remember, I had the problem with OneNote.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so there was a PowerShell script to fix OneNote as well. It was like an Apex thing, and you can't uninstall OneNote, but you can do the PowerShell, and that fixed it. So then, so my PowerShell's working. But anyway, so you fixed, so you don't need your parents' permission now to use your PC after 8 o'clock.
No, yeah, absolutely. Which meant I could actually finally get into Windows Update, which of course is now a modern app. So I was completely locked out. So I managed to get that, and so installed and upgraded to the new build there, and also because it was a simultaneous fast and slow ring release, so there's also the ISOs available. So also put the build into a virtual Hyper-V machine on my Surface Pro 3 and started playing around with it, and thought, you know what, I'm just going to take the plunge. So yeah, finally did the upgrade on my Surface Pro 3, and the upgrade went absolutely brilliantly, I have to say. I mean, when you consider the complexity of upgrading an operating system, and I've got Hyper-V with, you've seen the post I did with regards to all my SQL Server VMs and clusters, and it upgraded all of that, and even some VMs that I'd got in a saved state, even started in it previously. When I've upgraded from, say, Windows 8 to Windows 8.1, those VMs the saved state had to be deleted. So for me, it was kind of perfect. I guess one slight frustration is the fact that there isn't an upgrade in terms of the start menu. So you completely start afresh with a Windows 10 based start screen or start menu. So the first thing I had to do was move all my icons around, but all the modern apps all came across. I think I had some issues with the start menu on the desktop PC, but there was a fix release for that where the start menu wouldn't open if you've upgraded from the preview build to the latest one. Which, when the start menu first didn't open, I did start to panic. I thought I got my family safety issues back again. But yeah, so far so good. I've been running it almost for, I guess, about a week now, maybe not quite. It wasn't the first day I did it, but so far I think it's working really well. The People app won't open, but that's a known issue. I've got the preview for music and video up and running, and that's pulling in all my my music paths, my sync music. The calendars all working. One thing I have noticed compared to our desktop PC, and I think this is maybe a scaling issue with the Surface Pro 3 using the default scale of 150%, whereas the desktop is just the standard 100%. But I've noticed the desktop, I can have 2 columns of wide tiles per group. But on the Surface Pro 3, I can only have 1.5. So I can have one medium or one wide or large tile, but then only one medium tile next to it. So I'm just wondering how that's going to work in terms of switching across devices, because one of the things I don't like about Windows 8.1, and I've kind of designed my start menu around that, is I don't like the icons, the tiles moving when you switch between landscape or portrait or switch between devices. So I've always used single column, groups of single columns. Whereas now, if some devices allow for 4 and some only allow for kind of 3, let's call it, say, 3 medium tiles across, which is actually very Windows Phone-like. I'm just wondering if my tiles are going to start moving around. But the one positive thing is that Windows 10 uses the same scheme that Windows Phone's always done, where you can actually place your tiles as opposed to them just automatically flowing. But yeah, I mean, I've not had too many issues really. It's been pretty plain sailing. The start menu does crash quite badly. It doesn't like rotating between landscape and portrait. It actually changes again the scaling of the tiles, but I'm sure that's just a build issue. But the one thing I have noticed, of course, compared to Windows 8, now that kind of the taskbar is visible unless you're in tablet mode, is it doesn't half get cluttered when you've got a lot of modern apps open.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It really does get quite cluttered. And one of the things I liked about Windows 8.1 is that you could turn off modern apps appearing on the start menu. I haven't been able to find anything similar for the Windows 10 build, but obviously there's the updated Spartan, which now includes favorites, and that seems to be working quite well.
Yeah, I mean, my impressions were, and I'll put it on this Encore, is a much more stable release than the previous builds, or all the previous builds, really, perhaps apart from the first one, which was more like Windows 8.1, really. So I don't suppose you really count that. But yeah, it does feel, and it feels, there's probably not any one thing specifically you could say, but it just feels more polished in general. You can start to feel the project sort of coming together now.
Yes, yeah, it does feel like they're kind of starting to work on the fit and finish and bug fixes. Like, now we've kind of got to the point where pretty much all the features are in there. I know at Build they were demoing the Xbox One game streaming, which seems to be working very well on all accounts. But yeah, I think yeah, I mean, all in all, I've been quite happy. I think it might have been one build slightly too early. So the start menu does have a habit of crashing, particularly when you're moving tiles around. Occasionally, you drop it in place, and it would just carry on hovering. And when you go to the desktop, you can still see the tile.
Yeah,
which is quite a novel crash. But yeah, like I say, if you rotate the device, it does seem to change the scaling of the start menu. So I find myself kind of logging off and back on again. But so far, it seems to be, it seems to be working quite well.
Well, I found one. The only one issue I've really seemed to come across is the one that was bugging me is the one with you sort of get a white square and a black background when you unlock the device, and the only real way to fix it is to restart. You've got to do Windows power key to bring up the task menu, and you can just do a restart option, and it brings it back up. But and the old lock screen thing is still there, although it doesn't seem as bad now as it used to be. I don't know, but yeah, that is. But I mean, that was one of the things we discussed on Twitter, wasn't it? With someone, I think, who was saying that it might not be a bug, it might be a feature. But I think Microsoft have said, Gabe All said that is a bug, isn't it? Where it comes up, press Windows and power.
Yeah, and I've seen that on the Surface profile. I think that was Phil Lowson that was saying perhaps it's not a bug, but I think this is to do with, as we can talk about now, can't we? One of the things they showed off at the Build conference was how the how the lock screen is actually going to be interactive in a way. So not only will you be able to put your normal notifications like weather and calendar onto the lock screen, but it will also show you maybe the big image of the day, which you'll be able to tap on to get more information. And also it'll start to surface things like Cortana. If they notice you're not using Cortana, they'll use the lock screen to introduce it. Almost, I guess, getting almost, kind of crossing the line between advertising on the lock screen, which is slightly nervous, I think.
Yes, and I think that was one of the things, and I think that, like you said, that's why this screen doesn't quite work yet. But yeah, I thought that looked quite nice actually, and I think they said as well they would surface apps as well that wouldn't relevant apps to you that you haven't installed, maybe that you should have a look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly is a novel approach. I mean, there are one of the criticisms of the app stores. We're the opposite end of the spectrum, but for iOS and Android, the app stores can be quite crowded and trying to find the things that you need. And if Windows is capable of learning the sort of things, so for example, it might notice that you use the Amazon site quite often, and it could surface the fact that actually there's an Amazon shopping site. Probably it's very limited at the moment, but hopefully with Windows 10 we'll see a more advanced version. But just little things like that. So I can certainly see its uses. I think as long as it doesn't start throwing adverts at me for cheap holidays, then
yeah,
then I'll be quite happy.
And like you said,
and I think it is. I was going to say, and there are settings I believe I've stumbled across them where you can turn those sorts of things off. So, as it's always been the case with Windows, I think it's going to be very highly configurable in terms of personalising the experience.
Yeah, I think it's called Spotlight, isn't it? But at the moment in this build, it doesn't do anything. But I think, you, like you said, you can turn it off if you don't like it. But the other things I've noticed seemed more reliable. Spartan Browser definitely another step up, and now it's actually usable on the tablet. This Encore 8 now is actually quite usable, but aside from the odd bug, I can really pretty much use this all the time now, and they seem to have sorted battery life out, and the whole tablet now is useful. And it's funny, I've gone back to using it all the time now as my sort of pickup tablet, just to go and browse something or whatever. So it's back to how, I when I first got the what was it, Lynx 7, I sort of went to use that because it's a bit smaller and lighter, but actually now I prefer Windows 10 on this, so I've gone back to that, and it works quite well. And in tablet mode, I think tablet mode works really, really well on this device as well. The task switching seems quite nice as well. Although I did notice when you kind of go from portrait to landscape, it doesn't always resize the windows correctly again. I don't even notice that.
I mean, that's always been a historical issue with Windows, isn't it? Particularly when you had issues, if you worked in an office environment where you had a laptop and then you'd plug in a monitor and you'd organize all your windows, and then you'd have to undock your laptop and all the windows would just resize. And yeah, I've noticed that, particularly with the modern apps switching the Surface Pro 3 between landscape and portrait, just the windows just resize and move around all over the place. I really do wish, even not in tablet mode, I wish these modern apps would still remember that you want them full screen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, even when you're in full screen mode, it should know just to rescale them back to full screen again. But apart from that, it's working quite well. We've got a guest in the chat room, but Gary's in the chat room.
He couldn't have a gate crash, could he?
Yeah, from Georgia, but he can't listen to us because he's got no. He can't. He's got no broadband, so he can't talk to us.
He actually has less bandwidth than me.
Yeah, that's what he actually says.
Yeah. So hi Gary.
So you can insult him in the chat room, but he can't hear us. I think what else? Oh, he's on 2,400K. He says. Yeah, Cortana's been improved as well. Especially it seems to work better on tablet mode now. It's got that sort of full screen. I tell you what, it is quite good at is launching apps. You can start typing things in. It's got this preemptive stuff, so if you can type in what is the weather in London, it'll start trying to get it, won't it? Or what is the time in New York, it'll try to pull that through. Or if you start typing a letter like M for music or whatever, it brings up the app. So I've just typed M and it's brought up the mail app and the music's just below it. But if I start typing music, it brings up that as well. So it's actually quite fast as well for launching apps. So when I was up, one of the things I did used to like about Windows 7 was to sort of hit the start and start typing things. And you kind of missed that with Windows 8, but that is definitely back now with this build. The only thing is, on a tablet, this 8-inch tablet, you can't see what you're typing because the screens, the input box is at the bottom and on the on-screen keyboard's over the top of it. So you've no idea what you're typing, although it does start responding straight away.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think there's a few issues around that. Maybe the keyboard needs to move around or something like that. But yeah, I think this is a much more stable build and seems to be much more solid and reliable. I mean, the store seems better as well, although I still find it a bit odd finding updates through the store. It just seems to be very hit and miss.
Yeah, I've noticed when you click check for updates and it doesn't seem to find anything, and then suddenly you'll switch to a different view and go back to downloads, and suddenly you've got 3 or 4 apps downloading and updating.
Yeah, and there's no history log either. So
no,
which for a lot of people doesn't matter, but it does when you try to write up articles about what's changed, and you don't, it secretly is updated all your apps.
Yes. I mean, one of the things I do like in tablet mode, as I mentioned before, that all the icons on the taskbar now disappear, with the exception of Cortana and the desktop managers. And I think also now a universal back button then appears, which is quite a nice touch. In some ways, on the Surface Pro 3, I've started almost been experimenting with just using tablet mode, even if I've got the keyboard, in place to use. I just quite like that it's quite a clean view. I think
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing I would say is I think I would probably like Windows 10 more if Windows 8 hadn't existed. I think a bit like Josh Pollard, I'm kind of one of those people that actually really got on with Windows 8. And I think some of the stuff, while it's definitely improving, it's clearly, been some kind of things kind of gone by the wayside in terms of this transition, and almost starting with a Windows 7 base point. like I say, it's just sometimes having those most used lists down the left just feels like a bit of a waste of space. But I think overall, ultimately, this Windows 10 is going to be used by people that have stuck with Windows 7. And I think for those, I think the experience will be really good because they won't have known any different.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was mentioned, wasn't it, in one of the keynotes? I think Joe Belfiore mentioned it. Maybe I was watching a bit the Ignite highlights. He mentioned that they were making it easy for Windows 7 users to transition with the jump lists and things, just as they were in Windows 7. And like you, I quite happy with Windows 8 on the tablet. So yeah, it's a little bit backwards for me. But then again, spending all day on my laptop, which is Windows 8.1, but I never use the modern apps on it. So I would benefit from Windows 10. I'm thinking of putting that. I'm thinking of putting Windows 10 on my at some point. I'll put it on my laptop because I like the integration with the modern apps. I mean, for example, I use the Flickr up my Flickr upload quite a lot, but it's a bit of a pain having a full screen app when I'm on my desktop. I've got Internet Explorer and I've got Visual Studio and Outlook and Excel and whatever, and then you've got to switch to a full screen app, then switch back again, and so I'll get the benefits of running the Windows. So I know I'm going to be sort of slightly giving up that pure clean experience, but it is definitely for the benefit of Windows 7 and desktop users. And yeah, I think, as we've said before, they've got to go for that market, because if you're already on 8.1 and love Windows 8, then really you're already sold, aren't you? So it's not. Yeah. It's an easier sell to that, but getting Windows 7 users is much harder job.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I've missed, and I don't know if you know of a way to do this, but I can't find a way to pin websites to the start screen. I keep calling it start screen, to the start menu. So I had things like in Windows 8.1, I had BBC iPlayer and ITV Player pinned as Internet Explorer tiles. I've not managed to find a way to do that. I
haven't found a way of doing that, no.
So, which again is one of those things, isn't it? It's kind of chicken and egg, in that if you actually had the apps, then that wouldn't matter. But while you haven't got the apps, it's quite useful to be able to do that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they had that at some point. It's just you can do your favourites and everything, can't you? But there's no way of then sort of, like you said, pinning those. Although I suppose what they have, which they did show off, which we haven't talked about yet, was the new sort of start tab in what you call it, the correct name, Edge browser.
Yes, yeah. I wasn't. I guess lots of people were hoping they were going to stick with the Spartan name, but I think Edge it's quite a good name, isn't it? I think like most things, we'll just get used to calling it that, and that would just become the norm. I think from what I've read, there was a big consideration in terms of keeping the E symbol. I think so many people, grown up with Windows that aren't, techie users like us, just that's their gateway to the internet.
Yeah, it's in the IT crowd, isn't it? I want the internet, the big E.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, they had that new tab thing, which looked quite good. So I think that was from getting information from Bing, and maybe that's because that'll be a new start, and you won't necessarily pin sites. You'll just go through Spark or through Edge and get this new sort of start screen.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a way to get that new start screen up. Is that?
No, I haven't. No.
Got you. Maybe that's something that's coming in a later build.
Yeah. I thought it looked quite nice.
Yeah, no, it does look. I mean, I've mentioned before, my Internet Explorer homepage was always the about tabs, the new tab basically, just because it surfaced the search bar, and it also surfaced most recently websites. Because one thing I've noticed with the modern, what was the modern version of IE on Windows 8, is that I've kind of stopped using my favorites, just because there's always the most recently used list. And also the others that you type, it just seems to know really quickly the website that you want. So it's going to be interesting to see, switching across to Microsoft Edge, whether or not that homepage can fill that gap.
Yes, you're right, because I did that. I'm on the Surface now, and I usually just swipe down, and then you've got your tabs there, and when you click on plus, 99% of the time, what I want is already there.
Yeah, and also actually just thinking about it, one of the things that I also use quite often was the tabs thing, and I can't see a way to do that. And maybe that will be on that page as well. But yeah, quite often I'd switch to my Surface Pro 3 and then select, to open pages that I've opened up on my phone during the day. I haven't seen any way.
No, I haven't seen that at all. No.
And maybe that's something that will be coming eventually.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, because that's something I do like, and it's quite handy, isn't it? When you've opened something on your other machine, you think, oh, what was that page I was on, and you can just flick it open. And
yeah,
and the other thing I think they showed off at Ignite as well was the sort of the continuum working, how well that works. So I think Joe showed off. He was on an 8-inch tablet and was using the maps, and it's got the new back button. Which I saw that and thought, oh, that's Windows Phone, isn't it?
Yes, very Windows Phone like. Yeah, I mean, it was certainly interesting the way that small tablet using the Continuum system was able to switch between, a non-desktop interface and then also be able to expand out. It does show that underneath this really is one common platform.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that there was the hamburger menu that you could get to the recently used apps, which is, like I said, it's one of the things that I'd actually quite like to be able to hide. My start menu's crashed. Oh dear. Yeah, so that's ironically that's something that I'd actually like to be able to hide. I'd like to be able to do the reverse of that on my Surface Pro 3. But yeah, I think it does make me almost want still want even more a Surface Mini, something that I could use just in that small form factor. But actually, just if you needed to, you just plug it into something bigger.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So if I could just get a 7.9-inch Core i7 Surface Pro, that'd be great.
Yeah, fanless. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that they also showed off the sort of continuum how that works on a phone, but I think that is going to require new hardware. That was where effectively it became a PC, didn't it, when you were hooked up to a second display of your TV?
Yes, I mean, we've talked about Continuum ever since it was announced and how it switches modes and switches between tablet and kind of desktop mode. But I certainly never saw it coming for phones. But we've talked about this. Well, we used to talk this on TDL Mobile. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a mobile phone that when you get to work you just dock it and you've got your full desktop? And I know Microsoft talked about the Windows and doing the Windows 8 reveal that mobile phones are almost as powerful as PCs these days. So yeah, that was pretty amazing. The fact that you could just plug or maybe even do a Miracast connection or a mini HDMI out into a big screen monitor with a mouse and keyboard that's now supported via the Bluetooth profiles, and then you kind of run Excel as was their example, I think, or certainly one of the modern Office apps, and
PowerPoint.
It looks exactly like it does on the desktop because it's the same executable, the same program, literally just scales across different devices. I know, I think there was a post that Joe did that went alongside it, and he was suggesting scenarios whereby you might want to do some work, but your kid can still watch a movie or play a game on your phone while you're working.
Yeah. I think text message came in and you could carry on, but I'm not sure how. I like the idea, but I'm just not sure how relevant that is. I mean, most people you have another device anyway, but yeah, I do like that idea. In fact, before we get to Scott as well, and we'll talk some of the other stuff, I want to mention that I got the Miracast app working on the Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
So the Xbox One, it's on the preview program, so it'll be available, I guess, next month, possibly, although it might be still in preview then. So it's a separate app called Wireless Display, although it seems to work without it being loaded. But anyway, I put it on, and it only would work with my 1520. It wouldn't work with the Android phone or my Encore or my Surface Pro 3. But from the Lumia, it worked fine. I could just go to screen, the display, project my screen, and there it was. It was up on the screen, and it was just like how it works when I was using the Roku or something like that. So you can kind of see that continuum thing working on there almost. But it's just a shame it wouldn't work from any other devices. So I guess it's a bit of a bit of work to be done on that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, certainly And it does surprise me that it needs new hardware, and here we go. We've been shouting that we want a new premium handset, and now everyone's complaining. No, I want that on my handset.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
it's we're a funny lot, aren't we? We're never happy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I was listening to Entertainment 2.0, and Josh Poller was really excited. And imagine if you could also have like the whole desktop. And I don't think Richard was too keen on the idea, but I can certainly see that. I mean, we say we don't want a desktop on a phone. What we don't want is a desktop on a tiny device. If you had a phone that you could actually plug in, and actually you got the full desktop, and there are Intel-based mobile phones now. So what about an Intel-based Windows phone that can also install off desktop applications? I think that could be, particularly for someone like myself or Gary, where we're going around different clients, and if you just got a mobile phone with you, you can just plug in and away you go.
Yeah, definitely, and that would be a selling point then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as long as they don't try and make that desktop then appear when you were just using the phone on a, well, in your case, a 20-inch phone, I suppose it'd be okay. But
well, I mean, imagine my 1520 would be perfect for that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start using my Lumia 2520 as a phone.
Yeah, it's not bad on the size.
Yeah. Well, it's got a radio in it, just not a phone radio. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that scenario as a business device anyway.
Yeah. Right. Let's see if we can get Scott on with us. So yes, so they mentioned that there would be new hardware, but the hardware's not ready yet.
No, exactly. So I think we'll see that coming out later in the year.
I mean, they also mentioned as well, didn't they, that Windows 10 for phones isn't going to be released at the same time as the PCs, as we speculated.
Yes, it's going to be a staggered release, and there's also been a lot of talk at the Ignite conference this week about how it was more business oriented, but certainly how they plan to release new features. And there was certainly the interesting thing from our perspective was the comparison to the consumer version, where they would just be permanently adding new features, and along with security and bug fixes, and that the product would just evolve over time. And I think the real interesting thing as well that came out is the fact that the chances are, the indicators are that the insider program will continue. So basically it'll be when it hits kind of release to manufacturing, for use of an old term, that we'll get that build, and then if we can choose to stay on the consumer build, or we can stay on the slow ring or the fast ring, or I think there's even talk of a ludicrous ring.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. It's going to be interesting how they handle those builds. But yeah, so the program's going to continue, and we're going to because they're effectively going to be scrapping Patch Tuesday, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. Basically, if there's bug fixes and security fixes, then they'll just get released, and they'll along with new features. And I think part of that was the renaming. So the current build is now called the Insider Preview, as opposed to the it was just a developer preview, I think, before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to remember now. So I think potentially that's kind of a nod to the fact that the Insider Preview will just carry on running. And I think even there is an option now, even in Start. It says with my Start menu not opening.
It's crashed.
Switched away on the device. I think in Settings, if you go to Settings and then Update and Security, there's actually a setting called For Developers, which doesn't do anything at the moment, but I think that'll be how maybe you opt into side loading of applications that you're developing, or staying up to date with the most recent fixes. Yeah,
I think that's it. And that's what definitely I would do, is I would say my Encore, go on the latest one, and on my Surface Pro I might go for the slower release, and then on a corporate level you just handle it through really sort of stage releases.
Yeah, and interesting, like I say, interesting at the Ignite conference, they were talking that for businesses there'll be an option to opt into just security fixes, and also again there'll be rings for businesses whereby you can have early adopters that might get new features, particularly within, say, like an IT department, where they can test, see if those new features or enhancements have impacted any business critical software, and then slowly you could kind of roll that out to other users, or you can just opt into just security fixes. And I think Patch Tuesday was all well and good, and it was certainly brilliant for enterprises. Me managing enterprise systems, whereby you can plan a rollout. The patches come out on a Tuesday, and you can apply them to your dev test, and then finally until live. I think in this, as the internet age kind of evolves, there's so many 0-day exploits now that actually you just can't afford to wait that 1 month cycle. And even I think they're even talking that maybe again, with the insiders program, that those bug fixes, those security fixes might, could easily be rolled out to us as well, for us to, find help to debug them or to test them. We've talked recently about how Patch Tuesday, quite a few patches over the last 6-12 months have actually become more and more getting withdrawn after their release, or that they cause problems and issues. So I think it's certainly going to be a different world the morning after Windows 10 launches. Yeah,
definitely. And I think with the it's changed. Like you said, things have changed, and you 0-day exploits means you do want the updates as fast as you can get them. But for a business, you do want to be able to control them. So I'm having an issue getting hold of Scott at the moment, so maybe Scott's not back yet. So I do. So we'll talk about so there was rumours, and Gary did allude to sort of hint at it, that there were rumours before the keynote that somehow there would be Android apps on Windows Phone, which sounded odd, but there were quite a few rumours of it coming. But that wasn't quite what they announced. But there was something different, which is what Gary said. Not what you think it'll be. I think his words were.
Yes, and I think I was quite nervous about that announcement coming through, that it was going to be a free-for-all Android apps on Windows without in some kind of emulator or using some kind of virtualization technology. But I think on the whole, what was announced is a good compromise. I think. I mean, for example, so the Android isn't a true emulator. I think they've said but it is. There is going to be some translations going on. So basically, the Android apps, if they make a call to Google services, so for example, Maps or the App Store, then Microsoft behind the scenes will automatically redirect those calls to their own APIs. But fundamentally, this Android system is only for phones, so it's only on ARM. It's not going to be for Intel as well, which I think is a good limitation. It's a good way of getting apps onto the platform, but also that if you kind of want to really take full advantage and also make yourself a universal app, you will still need to port it across. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's not really a question of, you can't just take the APK file. If the Android APK file, if you don't know, that's the file that essentially the program that contains all the executable and the libraries and everything you need. On Android, you can actually just copy that onto an Android device and run it if you sort of accept the unsigned apps on there. But so you're not going to be able to just sort of copy that over or get to the Google Play Store on your phone. Developers have still got to do something, and I think that's perhaps the slight worry, that it still takes some developer effort to port it over, but it does look relatively straightforward.
It does, yeah. I mean, they were demonstrating. I mean, I'm not a developer, so a lot of this kind of went over my head, but it did seem that it was quite simple to do, and almost in some cases, depending on what features you want to take advantage of, you can almost do it with very little code changes. You only necessarily need to add code if you want to take specific advantage of Cortana or live tiles. So it certainly seemed, say for me, a good compromise.
Yeah, and the same goes for iOS, doesn't it, as well?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Although the iOS is across phones and tablets and PCs, it's complete. Again, I don't think emulation is necessarily the right word, but basically you can compile. What is it? It's Objective-C, isn't it? Into a Windows app. And in fact, I think the biggest revelation was the fact that that's how Candy Crush was ported to Windows Phone. That essentially it's the iOS app recompiled for Windows. I think it's quite a clever play the way they did that. So obviously that app has come out. They've been working with Microsoft through the process of building the compiler. but kept it secret. And I think their big fanfare was the fact that, look at the reviews. This is an iOS app running on Windows Phone, just direct compilation, and yet it's got brilliant reviews. No one's complaining about the speed. No one's complaining about compatibility issues. It just look, you guys didn't even know you were doing it.
Yeah, I think that was pretty impressive. And my only worry about it is there still enough incentive to push a developer of an Android app to release a Windows app? I'm not sure. Even if it takes 2 hours, does it cross the mind to even bother? I can understand for Windows itself, so getting your iOS app and posting it across so it runs on Windows Phone, Xbox. But if it's just on Windows Phone, is an Android developer going to be bothered?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're talking about and I know Android is only for phones, but they're talking about 1 billion Windows 10 devices, aren't they, in 2 to 3 years? So many of those devices, while they might not be phones, there will certainly be tablets, 2-in-1s, and desktop PCs. So that's a potential market, and particularly those. I think that we've said before. I think universal apps could be the thing we look back on as the biggest key, and so why not go to a bit of effort, get your app running on Windows Phone, because if it really does require that little effort, why not do it and then see what your downloads are like? And then maybe, if Windows Phone does grow in market share, then eventually, if you want to write a native application.
Yeah, I've just asked Gary in the chat room to sort of what's the difference between the sort of porting and writing a native, which would he do? Considering he writes to both. But just a question there from Copeland's in the chat room. He was saying just got his wife a 635 and wondering if it'll support Continuum and Windows 10. So I think you put the answer in the chat room. But yes, it'll support Windows 10, but Continuum is going to be for new hardware, which we don't even know what that hardware will be yet.
Yeah, and I do think we're going to see a really nice premium handset that supports the Continuum model, and potentially even it's Hello Windows, isn't it, where it unlocks using facial recognition. I think those sort of things I fully expect to come along. I think they'll potentially jump the whole, use your finger to unlock and just go straight for the facial recognition stuff.
What I want to see is 150 quid Surface Mini with that supports Continuum and Windows Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And a July released in time.
Yeah. Well, certainly. The Surface Mini should certainly support Continuum, shouldn't it? That was demonstrated with the small tablet. So, but yeah, I'd be definitely interested in that sort of thing as well.
I noticed Gary was saying earlier on in the chat room that he kind of thinks so. Stumbling block for iOS developers may be the mindset that iOS developers hate Microsoft traditionally, but I don't know whether that's something that will change over time as the perceptions have changed, because Microsoft certainly have changed their outlook on things, and it's not all about Windows, and it's a much more open-minded company now. So whether developers will pick up on that.
Yeah, I think. I know there is some real mindset. I sit in an office where they're switching from BlackBerry to Windows phones, and as people have started to get them, there's some real kickback about them. Although I think they do say they're better than the BlackBerries they're replacing, so it's not all bad. But I think ultimately it's easy to have that mindset today. But blimey, Windows on 1 billion devices, could you really afford to miss that potential revenue stream? And I think over time, desktop applications are going to disappear. Yes, they'll always have their place in the enterprise, but as we're starting to see with the Office apps, actually you can write enterprise level applications using the new Windows 10 APIs. And so, eventually, why not have a really complex app? That's the whole argument about the hamburger menu, isn't it? That as you write more complex apps, you do need menus, and they've introduced the ribbon in the modern Office apps, which seems to work quite well, having now had a bit of a time to play around with them. And I think there's also, obviously, one of the things they talked about was actually having non Windows Store apps in the store. So basically x86 apps in the store, which will download, install, and uninstall just as cleanly as modern apps through the AppV technology that's been developed over the years. And I think that was a huge bit of news. I think that's easily overlooked. But being able to download and know that you could trust, something as simple as WinZip, which I know from personal experience just recently that it's very easy to download an infected version of WinZip these days. It's quite a big target. But imagine being able to download that out the store and have it install, and also, which more importantly, a lot of people complain about Windows about how when you try out some software and then uninstall it, it leaves loads of junk behind. Well, it will. One, it'll be sandboxed, and two, it will uninstall just as invisibly as before you even installed it.
Yes, I mean, that is, like you said, it is very significant. I know it's something that Gary wanted ages ago, wasn't it? Be able to have the .NET apps in the store, and you can do that as well, can't you, with this? So you can have Windows 2 and .NET apps, and then they're isolated. And I think Adobe's bringing Creative Studio, is it? I think it's Creative Studio to it. So yeah, you're gonna see full apps in there, and that they're inspected and check they don't contain malware, and it's a simplified process. It's a bit like on the Mac App Store. You can get some of this. You can get the same app directly from the developer's website. You can also get it from the Mac App Store, but it's through the Mac App Store. It's been verified, and if you purchase it, you can go to another machine when you signed in, and you can download it on that machine. So it handles all that kind of thing. And like when you do a PC refresh, I would imagine that if you've got a Win32 app that's from the store, it will get its settings and everything will pull down, so you won't have to manually reinstall it. So I think it's a good idea. I guess we'll see Office on there, won't we, at some point as well? No reason why the full desktop Office wouldn't be on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you use I think Office 365, I think a lot of that installation is done through AppV anyway, and that's how they're able to service it so easily. And always keep it up to date. Yeah. So I think
and web apps as well, isn't it? That was the other thing.
Yes, again, that's another big thing. Where again, I guess a way to get people to come onto the platform that you can literally just write, an application shell for your website and reuse all the website code. I think ultimately that was the kind of key announcements, really, wasn't it? It was all about reusing your existing code, your existing investments. Look, you don't need to invest in Windows. You can just run your applications straight from the cloud, or from Android on phones, or from iOS on all Windows 10 devices.
Yeah. So I think it was a very positive keynote. The Windows looks good. It's looking much more polished OS. I think they will hit the summer release for the PC version. The mobile version, the 7-inch tablet and below, an ARM version for the phones. I think we'll see that later. I'm really keen to try a pre-installed Windows, the mobile version of a 7-inch tablet. So not necessarily a phone, something like that Link 7, where it's on a small device, but not necessarily a phone. I think I'd like to see what that looks like with the sort of the polished build running with the mobile, because it didn't really show that, but I think we could get some flavors of it with the back button and everything. You can kind of see the merging of Windows Phone and the desktop builds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly from what they revealed, it looks like they've done a really good job of the smaller than 8-inch tablets. And obviously, again, the continuum comes into play, whereby you can plug it into a bigger monitor and get the bigger experience. And I think that's going to be one of the big wins, for this modern Windows 10 platform, and particularly those apps could run across Xbox, run across all devices.
Yeah. So the other thing at the keynote that showed off was HoloLens.
Yes, they did. Yeah, the demo doesn't, or the presentation doesn't seem quite as good as the demo, from what I've been reading.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think HoloLens is going to suffer the same thing as many technology products do when they're announced quite early in the development cycle. Is they'll never live up to the initial euphoria that you see at the first demo.
No, I do think they were a bit naughty with the on-stage demo. the fact that they were using a camera to show you what the person wearing the HoloLens could see, based on people that have had hands-on experience, it seems like that the view we had with holograms all over the wall and the weather holograms sitting on a table, it made it look like the room was filled with holograms, and actually that's not the experience. And I think that was slightly misleading. I mean, I understand they probably don't want to reveal what the issues may be with the field of view, but I mean, for example, one of the things they showed you was, look, you can watch a video, you can pin it to the wall, and then look, you can expand it out to 108 inches if you want to. But actually, how far away would you need to be stood to actually fit that 108-inch screen into the small field of view that you have? So I think that was a bit naughty of them. I mean, they've set expectations so high, and one of the things that I liked from the original announcement back in January and the people that had the hands-on is that the hands-on experience was very similar to what they were showing off, whereas I don't think that was necessarily the case this time around.
Yeah, I think we're getting close to a real product, aren't they? So you're perhaps starting to see some of the limitations. I think that field of vision for the holograms is going to be the key key issue with it, isn't it? I think that's what all the people that had hands-on time with it said, that it's a smaller field of vision than it looks on those demos.
Yeah, and I think again, people were saying that the whole experience of the Mars example that they had in January just wouldn't work with the current field of view. But I was chatting to Richard Hay on Twitter today, asking him whether or not he thought there might actually be two versions, and I think that would make sense, wouldn't it? Because ultimately there are costs involved, because they do seem to be selling this as a consumer type tech. So it could be that there is one version for consumers which has relatively limited view in order to keep the costs down and make it more palatable in terms of wearing on the head for longer periods of time, and then maybe a more scientific business orientated version that maybe is tethered in some way but actually gives you a more fuller experience.
Yes, I think you could be right. There maybe is like you said, a scientific education skew and a consumer one. They've just got to be careful it doesn't end up like Connect, where it's a brilliant vision, but it never really, it never really lived up to the promise.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was that lovely video from when the Connect was first announced, and then when we finally got the product, and it was in our living rooms, and we all started moving our furniture around. It wasn't quite, and even now, I think the voice recognition on the Xbox One isn't great. But one of the things that I was really positive about was that people that had the hands-on in January were saying, actually, you sit there in the audience and listen to the announcement and you're really skeptical and think there's no way that reality can meet up with their lovely shiny presentation video, but actually it did. But now, unfortunately, it sounds like it's certainly been scaled back, and that's no longer quite the case. On the positive side, it does mean that they had a capability, and over time, as technology advances, as parts reduce in price, that maybe they can start, version 2 will have that wider field of view.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's still something that I would definitely love a chance to play around with, and I can imagine playing a game, like a Forza, and having a holographic, dashboard in front of me, or things like that, or having a holographic map of the Forza Horizon, or you think about interactions with some of the other games that is possible. It could be quite interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to give it a try. It's going to be interesting to see how they do with that. Now,
there is one thing that we do have to say: Microsoft giveth, but Microsoft also taketh away.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I thought we were talking about the same thing as me, but we talk about one product for the future in HoloLens, but one product from the past won't be with us in the future.
It certainly won't. No. Yeah, unfortunately, it has been confirmed. I saw a tweet from Gabe All today, reaffirming Ed Bott's story that there will be no Windows Media Center included in Windows 10. And then Gabe All followed up with a tweet saying, but we will be looking at a way to bring DVD support to Windows 10, which seems to be the main use. Now, I'm sure that statistic comes from their feedback from the telemetry they get. but the responses were quite amusing.
Yeah, well, I tweeted one from Now Ginsburg who put I was hoping that they have gramophone support in the
Yes.
new version.
Yes, I did see that,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's what we've all known for a long time. I think it was a nod to the enthusiastic support in that it was even included in Windows 8.1. But I think Josh Pollard made a really good point. This isn't, everyone's saying this is the death of Media Center. It's not. It just means that it has ultimately no future. But Windows 7 and Windows 8 is still going to continue to run.
Yeah.
As long as there's guide data, and even if Microsoft stopped doing guide data, there's plenty of third-party tools. I mean, DVB Logic, they have their own tool for importing guide data into Media Center. I'm sure in the States there's other tools that you can use the same way. So it's certainly not the death of Media Center. It just means it has a fixed life now.
Yeah, exactly. And if you've got, like I said in the post, if you've got Media Center up and running now and you love it and rely on it, then fine, you've still got it. Like you said, guide data may be an issue going forward in the future, but it's currently there, and there are third-party solutions. And if you really want to go to Windows 10, then you've got to look at alternatives. But you don't have to. You're not being forced to go to Windows 10, and nothing will stop working overnight anyway. And someone did say to you, "Oh, what about Xbox 360? You can't." But I need the extender support. Well, if you need it, then just stick with Windows 7 or Windows 8. I mean, like I was told back at the end of Windows 7 development that Windows Media Center is effectively finished and done. And I was surprised when it was in Windows 8. Really, I think it got a reprieve. Really,
and I think
execution.
Yeah, and I think even then it was the enthusiastic crowd that used Media Center that possibly got that included, because it was quite late on when Steve Sinofsky mentioned that yes, we are going to include it, and we said then it was just literally just a recompilation into .NET 4, and I think I mean, we used to use Media Center primarily, kind of. Probably 75% of our usage of Media Center was always through the Xbox 360, so it didn't matter what the back-end OS was, because you couldn't see the desktop anyway. And I think there was quite a bit of backlash. Windows 8.1 didn't work as well with the start screen, didn't work quite so well with remotes as people would have liked, and certainly the modern apps didn't work quite well with remotes. So even then, there was no real need or push to upgrade to Windows 8. So I think it's a shame, but we talked about this not the other week. The world has moved on. Streaming technologies kicked in. People are buying movies digitally. Media Center really is a kind of enthusiast product where people are ripping their own DVDs and converting them into a format that Media Center can use. But I think Josh Pollard said it, the one great thing about Media Center is it's the one independent DVR that does support copy once protection. And I think with particularly in the States, that's that is a really big deal, and it is a lovely multi-room DVR. It's you can record it on a central PC, and even when copy protection exists, you can use an extender to watch it on any device. But yeah, I think things are moving on, so
yeah,
it's certainly not surprising.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's 10 years since it first came, and it never quite. It was close to making mainstream, I think, but never quite made it. And I think had Sky supported it in the UK, it would have been a different story, but they never did. So I think that was it. Really, there was no way to get premium TV on it. And like I said, I am just looking at the comments. There's quite a few comments on the post, but if you like what you've got, then stick with it. Or if not, you could look at MB or Plex or the Silicon Dust Kickstarter project, which has got funded. So there's other solutions out there. And also I did see Gary posted that potential rumors of DVR functions coming to the Xbox One, which makes perfect sense. And something we've talked about a while ago. It's got the hard drive, it's got a tuner, it's got one guide. Adding it can pause live TV. It's not going to take much just to add a DVR function to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that must be coming, although I'm still kind of 50-50 on that, because I think the world is moving now into more streamed catch-up TV. I think I tweeted this thread bot that, our generation started recording TV with videotapes. My kids' generation used a digital video recorder, but I really don't see their generation, maybe their kids will just, but I really don't see the next generation bothering with recorded TV. It would just be a completely alien thought, like using the internet over a 28k modem.
Yeah. Yeah, or 1 meg broadband even.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think, it would be nice to see the Xbox get recorded TV support, but again, rightly or wrongly, Microsoft has always been one for producing software and then partnering with other technology companies. So I think they still potentially see the full TV capability of the Xbox One being integration with other set-top boxes.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, so a sad day. Not unsurprising, but still, I mean, it's the reason why I got into all this, and many of us got into all this, and that sort of single vision, it's never quite got there. Nothing has ever sort of got close to really what Media Center could do. And I did say, imagine if Microsoft had developed it and changed it into a cross-platform media server type system with integrated apps and everything else, running Android and iOS and everything else. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I always refer back to Charlie Owen's post, who is obviously, one of the, a long-time friend of the show and a key person on the Windows Media Center team. And for him to do a blog post many years ago now saying that he believed it would never be anything more than an enthusiast product because real people don't want a PC in the living room, and where they have got their PC, there probably isn't a telephone, not a telephone, but a TV signal point. Yeah. And I think ultimately that was the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that sad note, we shall leave it. Now we're on the next show is show 500, and I think we might try. Gary's not here next week, is he? So I'll chat with Gary, but I think we may wait till Gary's back to do show 500. So I'm not quite sure what we'll do next week. We'll have to do 499B or something.
Yeah, 499.1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can keep up with us on Twitter at iOS Dixon for the news on what we're doing next week. Jace, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Database Jace.
And Gary's at Gary WMA, 2 R's, and Fascinating Tech. And anyway, so we'll be back possibly next week or certainly the week after we show 500. And you can go and get the new builds on your machines if you want to give it a try. And make sure you follow us on Twitter. Until then, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, cheerio. Good night.
Excellent, great stuff. Thanks for recording a bit later. I'm not sure.
That's all right.
I'm not sure what we'll do. We'll send I'll send an email around and we'll see what we want to do. Whether we wait for Gary, it should be a shame to do 500 without him.
Yes. Oh, we forgot a prediction. Prediction whether or not there'll be a Windows Phone.
Oh,
Windows 10 for mobiles prediction build.
My prediction is there'll be a new build this week.
There will be a new build this week. Yes.
Yes, I'll include that in the show.
And we want a Windows 10 build as well, because it was the interesting thing, Joe Belfiore showing off newer builds.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a new build as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, until then, we'll see you then.
Cheerio.
See ya. Bye.
See you. Bye.